Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and it's about financial success today. Specifically, how I figured out to be financially successful. It's worked for me. It's really just one thing if I could sum it up. And before I tell you like what it is in a summation, I want to kind of just give you insight into like my thought process before I got there, what I did, and then like how I feel pretty much a decade later after I made the decision, if it worked or not. And I guess I would have to start with my first job. My first job was me being a cashier at a grocery store. I had begged my mama for a few years before that, I was in high school, to get the job. She told me no, but like all good moms do, they relent and she let me get the job. I liked the job. It was so much fun. I was there for 6 to 8 months, but I found out relatively quickly that I was not going to be working there anymore because it just wasn't working out. Oddly enough, it was because of school. I love school, and it was taking me away from school in a way because no matter what I told them people, like, I'm a student, I can only work these like times or days, they would say, yes, that's fine, we can work around your schedule. But when the schedule kept coming every week, somehow it was on the schedule, and I was just not understanding why we were doing this. So I'm not a big complainer. I'm not really someone who talks about it. I was just like, okay, then I'm not going to be here. My mom laughed at me. She's like, you haven't been in the workforce for like 6 months and you already complaining. I'm like, yeah, but I'm gonna go. So I gave my boss my 2 weeks notice, and she's like, no, you can't leave. And I'm like, yeah, I'm leaving now. Like, it was no hard feelings or anything like that. And she understood. But that lesson taught me in high school, about to be graduating, going to college, that I'm not attached to a job. Don't get me wrong, I'm attached to being honest and ethical, and I'm attached to working really hard and giving the people like my all because they are paying me. But that's it. Like, I'm not gonna do over and above. And that's what a lot of companies want you to do. Like, they topple on, and I was like, I'm not with that because I think that's unethical for them to do to me. But I always go there on time, punctual, doing the best that I can, and then I leave. It also taught me that things are temporary. In that situation, that's for me, that was a bad thing. It was temporary, because when things are bad, and you know it's temporary, that gives you the hope to get out of it and just keep going until it gets better. But on the flip side, which I don't think many people think about, is that good things are temporary as well. There are cycles in life, there are ebbs and flows and processes, and when I got my first big girl job in my mid-20s, it was nice on paper, but there's something about me, just because I learned that things are temporary at my first job and throughout college, those weren't serious jobs either, that I don't know if I'm gonna always have this nice job. I hope to have this nice job, but things happen. And I know that companies are not attached to me because I'm not attached to these companies. So on the outside looking in, people are like, I don't understand, like, you must be so like happy you have this job, and I am, but I always knew that I don't know if it's always gonna be there for whatever reason. And then I governed myself accordingly. So when I was like, I have my big girl job, how am I gonna like figure these things out? What I came to the conclusion is I'm always gonna live below my means. If this job, for example, is paying me $50,000, that's amazing, but I just got out of college making no $1,000. So I am going to live off of $35,000, and that extra 15 I will save, and I will figure something out with that. But I'm never gonna live off of $50,000. And I decided to do that in my first big girl job because I'm like, if I learn this practice now, when I'm making the $75,000 and $100,000 that I hope to make in 5 to 10 years, it's not gonna be hard for me. If I'm making 100, I'll never live off 100. I will live off of 75 or 50 if I'm feeling real froggy, but no, probably 75. So that I'm never too pressed. So once I decided to do that, I was like, the key for me doing that, because I made the decision, was I had to start budgeting. And I love a budget because a budget tells you where your money is, but more importantly, it tells you where your money is not. And I think for people who don't like to budget, it's because it tells you where your money is not. And a lot of people don't want to see that, and I understand. But for instance, if you're like a car person and you want a luxury car, a budget will tell you if you can truly afford it or if you can't. Because if you budget for it, you will budget for not only the payment, but you'll budget for the insurance, and you'll budget for the maintenance that comes along with it, and the emergency funds that come along with it. It's not just a payment that you have to budget for, it's a whole bunch, it's the contingencies. Same thing if like a lot of people, I like to travel, but if I say I want to be in someone's city or country 4 times a year, baby, does my budget say? And I find it unfortunate when people don't like to budget because they hate to see what the money does not have, because it's not always like that. Your first budget is like that, but you can work on it for 6 months to a year to get to your budget to a place where it starts telling you, yes, you can do some of these things you want to do, until it tells you that you can do everything you wanted to do. And that's how my budget started. Like, my budget started telling me, you can't do none of this stuff that you want to do because you committed yourself to living below your means. But after 2 years, after 3 years, it got better. And by the time 10 years later, 35, I was sitting pretty. Like, I could do everything in my budget, still living below my means, to a point where I didn't even know when I got paid because it didn't matter. Like, I was that secure. And I'm not there now. I look at my paycheck every week, but I'm just starting over. And I hope to, at 45, be at a position where I'm not even looking at the paycheck because I have these systems. And then the third part after you get the budget is you either save or invest. So in my mid-20s, I was saving it and then investing it. Actually, what I was doing is I was saving that extra money and putting it towards my student loans. But if I think about it, that was really investing in my future, because paying off those student loans in less than a decade, almost a decade, but less still, that allowed me to really be able to go somewhere else. And I wasn't stuck at those people's job if I didn't want to. And I can always go back, but that piece of paper that I technically don't have, I never ordered it from my school. I'm going to do it though. It's paid for, and I can invest in myself and go get another one, or I can do whatever I want. You know, I can stay or I can go, but I have the freedom. So that was still an investment. Now, at this point in my life, I don't have discretionary income like that. I live still off of most, but I still have it. Like, I have figured out in my budget that I can save like 10% of what I'm making, or I think it's like 8 to 10%. And for me, I think that's good, because it could be no percent, right? I'm lucky that I have a little bit extra, and 100% of those extra dollars will be invested at this point. I'm investing, I told y'all in a few videos before, I'm gonna open a brokerage account this year, because it's 2024 now. And I'm excited for that, but I am kind of like laser focused on that brokerage account. Any extra money I have, and it's more like $50 a week, or every 2 weeks, is going, because, and I'm hoping for the consistency. So by the time I'm 45, like, it's just making me money. And that if I want to, I have the option to slow down, because I do like my new job. It's amazing, but it's a lot on the body, and I'm very health conscious, and I don't want to have to do this job at 45. I would like to be able to have the option. But there are people who are 45 that work in my job that they have to, you know? So yeah, it's working fine. And at this point, 11 to 12 years later, on top of it helping me be actually financially successful, more so I think than the average, it allows me to kind of play by my own rules. And I think that's part of financial success. It's not really about having the money, but it's having the option to have more time with yourself and not be stuck in, like, if I were to try to work for a company, but I'm not serving them the way they want me to, and they're not serving me the way I want them to, I can just go. There are no hard feelings. And that is nice. That's a nice place to be at my mid-30s. I don't plan on shaking it up. I think that has been my secret. I just have accustomed myself from the beginning to live off of less. And now I still do it, and it's not hard at all, because I've been practicing it for over a decade at this point, and I'm sticking to it. So that's mine. Do you have one? And on top of that, do you agree with the one that I have? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to get your feedback, and I'd love to know some things you have found to help you be financially successful. And until then, I'll see y'all next week. Take care.